In this video, brain injury survivor Angela shares her cognitive fitness techniques. Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Gardner, and I talk about traumatic brain injury recovery. And today I'm pleased to be speaking with brain injury survivor Angela. Traumatic brain injury recovery. Welcome, Angela.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. Now, Angela, you and I have talked before in a previous video, but I know that you've done a lot of work in your recovery and you have some very interesting things to share with us. Just remind us when your accident occurred, how it happened, and a summary of the course of recovery up till now.
First, let me just say thanks for having me on doing this Skype interview again, because I just am so inspired to encourage and educate those that are TBI survivors going through recovery and those that aren't. So that's really close to my heart. But 17 years ago, reckless driver, I don't know if he was on his phone or not, was driving along and crossed the debit lines and hit me head on in a nearly fatal car accident. So I suffered a traumatic brain injury, lacerated liver, punctured lung, renal contusion, over 1,000 stitches. I have a great plastic surgeon back on the East Coast, Dr. Rauscher, broken ribs, everything. So it was a long, hard recovery. But being a former D1 college volleyball player, I had the mindset to kind of keep on trucking and keep on going, even when it's so difficult and you feel like giving up every single moment. So
good for you. You had the determination.
Yeah, you got to have determination and the perseverance, even when people are telling you, oh, just, take it easy. You want to take it easy. You got to give your body rest, and especially with a TBI recovery. But you need to make sure that if you don't have that support around you or that encouragement, that you seek it out, maybe with these videos like you're doing.
Right. So persistence.
Persistence pays off. Yes.
Tell me about how you address some of these challenges in your recovery, past and also present.
Well, sometimes I'd, get those setbacks, or I'd feel a lot of mental fatigue. So it was always important to rest, and even rest as much as I could. I know how important sleep hygiene is, even more so, and how much that is important to our brain's function. So I can be like a top performer or my best version of Angela the next morning that I wake up. So other things that I've had challenges with is just like kind of keeping to a schedule. I have so much ambition, and maybe, I don't know if it's from the injury or not, but see opportunity everywhere. Sometimes it was hard to focus. And whether you're ambitious or not, I think for all of us, sometimes it's really hard to focus. Like, what am I trying to do here? And so
absolutely.
Right. I mean, I'm sure you've had some challenges with just focusing, like, okay, why am I working on this?
There's so many possibilities. There's so many options. The challenge is to prioritize.
So sometimes that was difficult for me, and it still is sometimes, but I've made certain things in my life non-negotiables. Like, this is on the calendar. You're going to do this every day, or at least 5 days a week, to make sure that I build healthy habits, and almost retraining my brain. Like, this is the new system. This is the new routine. And so I don't have to waste energy on making decisions of what I'm doing or where I'm going and what's important to me. Yeah. Well, definitely in the morning, I've got that morning routine. Now, when the afternoon comes, I'm kind of like, all right, well, we'll just see what happens, or going on appointments, for real estate or whatever's happening. But it's definitely, I'm grateful for having some time to do my own research and really practicing it on myself to see how what I'm learning, what I'm doing, can help all those that are in recovery, or even those that aren't in recovery.
What was your job at the time of the injury, and how are you spending your time now?
Well, I was in medical device sales. I worked for a large company called Stryker, and I was selling hospital beds, and pretty much the CEO of my business. I had a account that I managed and going to hospitals in northern New Jersey, where I'm originally from, and that was about 17 years ago. And that was difficult. Sometimes it's hard to focus, and you're always like hustling. It was a 100% commission job, so you have to really have that mindset, like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going and looking for that business and closing. I'm in sales. I'm a natural saleswoman. And so now I am in real estate. I also do coaching on the side. I love to do a lot of inspirational speaking to share my story, to help encourage others, whether they've had a recovery or not. These habits that I've habits that I've started implementing and building in my life have helped me with my business. So
good. One of the challenges has been to stay focused. You have developed a morning routine, a
Yeah.
regular schedule. Can you be more specific about what that routine consists of?
Yeah. Well, this morning it was tough to get out of bed, and I usually set the alarm for around like 5 or 5:15 because I want that morning time, and I practice like prayer, and I began meditating. I started meditating for 15 minutes every morning, and I meditated before our interview today in the afternoon. So I try and do that twice a day for 15 minutes because I've researched and learned the benefits of it. In addition to that, usually after about 15 minutes, I have my little gratitude journal, and I write down things that I'm grateful for every morning to get my mind focused on all the things that I do have. Because it's so easy to say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, or I'm still looking for this. So the gratitude journal and just writing out my thoughts has been really helpful. And I think there's research behind it that kind of helps with the right brain. Speaking of that, I'm not a neurologist, or all the science behind all this, but I started coloring as well. And I try to
Really?
do 2 or 3 times a week now. And so this month, since it was Valentine's Day a week or so ago, the theme for this month was love. And so I would just, here's an example of love and trust. And here's a picture of love on a park bench. I started drawing and tapping into that creative side. And I miss that. So it's actually helped me to relax, kind of, okay, you've got some time for you. And in addition to that, I know it seems like a lot. This isn't every morning. I exercise. That's huge. And sometimes when you don't feel like going to the gym, I just get outside and run. I try and run like 3 miles every morning. Now, you don't have to run 3 miles. You could just walk a mile. You could walk for 10 minutes. This morning, I didn't feel like going for a run. It was a little cold out. So I decided to go in the living room, did 15 minutes of yoga. There's so many benefits to yoga. And for such a long time, Dan, I was always like, I don't need yoga. I'm pretty healthy. I just like running. I like just doing my cardio. But there's so many health benefits for our brain to doing yoga. And so what I've done is I've really changed my mindset and to think about yoga and meditation as, well, these are things for my brain. This isn't about like trying to lose weight or
Sure.
trying to namaste or whatever, be quiet. No, it was more about how is this going to help my brain create new pathways and fill it with dopamine, just get that mood up. So that's been something that I see right away. When I didn't want to get out of bed, just did a 10-minute HIIT workout, high intensity interval training,
Right.
Even squat jumps, which I've shown are great for working out, but also great for coordination, which is good for this.
So you got the bases covered with meditative activities, prayer, journaling, coloring, physical activity. Now, I know you do all these things together, but do you have a sense for which are more helpful, or is it hard to separate?
Well, definitely exercise. Exercise and meditation and prayer are like the non-negotiables. That makes a successful day if I get up and do those two things. And I like to do them in the morning. If I get the meditation in the afternoon, when I'm feeling the afternoon lull, like at 2:00, then I'll sit and do it. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, just to quiet my body and my brain and just get grounded. When I was in therapy after my trauma, I learned about grounding technique. If I feel triggered or anything, I practice a lot of grounding to make sure I stay present and mindful. Okay, this is what you have right now, and this is where you are.
Yeah. Can you explain grounding techniques or what specific ones you might use?
Just the other day when I was driving, I was like, all right, just get present. It's like go, go, go all the time in my business. Real estate never really shuts off. So it's important for me to practice these techniques. So I would just count the palm trees while I was driving along. I put on some relaxing music. Sometimes I will start to think about different states that begin with the letter A. Okay, we got Alaska, Alabama, Arkansas, right? Just to get my mind focused on something else and to bring me back to here, grounding, maybe even counting backwards from 20 or just little things like that. Just feeling really present, or all the things that I enjoy. And actually in the corner, you can't see it right now, but I have a little mason jar, and I saw this on one of David Goggins' YouTube videos about the cookie jar. And it's a mason jar that I have filled with just little reminders of the things that I've done to make sure that I stay present and to focus on the positive person that I am instead of all these things that I haven't done.
Well, we know that even if one doesn't have a traumatic brain injury, there are always times of doubt
Oh,
and uncertainty and insecurity. I mean, that's the human condition.
well, no, self-doubt creeps in all the time, like every day. So now I just acknowledge it, and I'm like, okay, there you are again. Whether I'm like, going for a walk or before this presentation, you start thinking, well, I don't know if I'm prepared, or maybe even before any sort of presentation or talking with a stranger or a job interview or whatever that is, we all can start to feel a little self-doubt. Am I smart enough? Can I really handle this? It's like, now I just acknowledge it. Well, that's just a thought. That's not who I am. So it's nice to see you. Great. Okay, now you can leave now. So I kind of talk to that limiting belief and say, okay, there you are again. Great. Let me just acknowledge that you're there. Okay, now I kind of move it in my brain. I try to, creeps back in, or I'll just make sure to practice any grounding. Yeah.
What you're saying is that we all have self-doubt and it's
Yeah.
normal and natural. And so
Natural.
instead of trying to cover it over,
Yeah.
you're saying, yeah, it's there,
Yeah.
but I know I usually do well and I'm pleased with the way I talk and interact with people and engage with people. So I'm good. I'm good with it.
Yeah. So let me get my confidence back. So let me use this as an example. Maybe these pencils, we'll say this is like a limiting belief or a thought that just kind of comes around. It's kind of floating around all the time around our head, almost like a cloudy day. And it's like, okay, it's going to be cloudy out today, or it's just cloudy right now. Let me just notice that. But I don't want that to distract me from what I'm about to do. And so it's
Right.
so important to focus, or maybe really watch our self-talk.
Right.
Sometimes I hear other people saying, oh, I'm so bad at that. I'm like, well, no, you aren't. That's not who you are.
The goal is not to deny the doubts, is to say, yeah, that's normal, the normal human condition,
Right.
and I'll deal with it. I'll go forward, recognizing that that's normal for everybody.
Right. And if it wasn't normal and if we didn't have that challenge, then it just kind of, life would be a little boring, right? I keep telling myself, if you're not, well, I think this is Tony Robbins' quote, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I want to be growing. And how can I stimulate my brain to keep firing off new neurons, producing new neural pathways, or all the neuroscience, neuroplasticity, all that stuff. But
Anytime we take a developmental step or a risk or we try to grow, there's always anxiety. Will I fall short?
Yeah.
Will other people see me as inadequate? All those fears come up.
What's helped me is a new goal that I've set to learn to juggle, because I've learned that juggling is really good to develop the right brain. Or a girlfriend of mine gave me some limes and I had a couple extra, so I just let them, now they're almost like orange and they're really hard, but I practice juggling. I think that's a good mental stimulation.
Oh, absolutely.
Practice.
Great for your coordination, for sure.
Right, just to throw it up. And even though I can't do 3 yet, I just keep telling myself 1, 2, and just focusing on the toss, not so much the catch.
You also like challenges.
I do.
That
Yeah.
makes you feel good.
It's difficult, but I put that goal down to learn how to juggle before the end of March. And so, like you asked me, one of the challenges is being consistent and practicing these habits.
Are there any other obstacles that you can think of besides staying focused that you're contending with now?
I suffer from the achiever syndrome. So sometimes I will just keep going and going, and my brain is just like on autopilot and just keep.
There's a part of you that wants to push forward. What's the goal of that part of you?
It's that thriving and it's probably striving side of me that's, well, I can do more. And there isn't enough time. So I just want to make sure that I get it all in. And that's really what the achiever syndrome is and what I created years ago, because when we have the achiever syndrome, we lose our identity and our achievements. And so it's like, okay, well, once that's gone, well, who are you outside of that? It's like doing a little self-discovery. It was for me like 9 years ago or so when I developed it. But one of the reasons why I suffer from it so much is because of, life is short. After learning how fragile life is and nearly dying in a car accident, I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm very ambitious. Sometimes that can work against me though, because I'll spread myself too thin. It's like, well, you've got all these commitments on the calendar, Angela, but you got to make sure that there's a commitment to you. And is there self-care scheduled on the calendar? So now I actually have it on my calendar. I have a Google Calendar and it says on like Thursday night, self-care, and that's in pink. or on Monday night. I don't always stick to it, so that's a challenge, making sure that I stick to it. But I think everybody needs to put themselves on the schedule.
Now, you're talking about self-care, which I also agree with you is extremely important. I like the different strategies that you've explained to me now. What about the role of other people in your recovery?
We need that support group, and we need people to give us things like a hug. At least for me, I'm a huge hugger. So when I get a hug and somebody holds me for like a full frontal hug, 2-arm squeeze hug, that connection makes me feel loved. Another thing is accountability. I have a couple friends that are like accountability partners, like with my real estate business and then in my personal life. You know, here's some of the personal goals that I want to work on this week, or here's the real estate goals that I have. And we have calls. I probably have like 3 accountability calls a week, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, to keep me on track and to have that support and that encourager. I mean, I'm always pouring out. I really appreciate it when my peers and my coworkers and people that I'm around encourage me.
Good for you.
That is a vessel for me to just pour it out to more people. And I think it makes me think of when I meditate, I will repeat the word love to myself to then make sure that I'm filled with it so I can share that with everybody that I come in contact. Now, that's not easy to do all the time, but.
Right. So you're talking about, one is comforting ourselves and supporting ourselves. The other thing is having other people who can share the journey with us so we're not alone. How did you find these accountability partners?
One's like a great friend that I have from maybe like 9 years ago. She lives in South Carolina right now. Other ones have been through my brokerage and going to this real estate event that I went to. I don't use a lot of essential oils, but I found this one called Brain Power. So now this is like part of my morning routine. It's like, okay, well, you know, whenever I'm like done getting ready, it's like put on some Brain Power, and I usually have my shakes with like my little brain octane oil.
That's a nice name. Hey, what are the ingredients in Brain Power?
In the brain octane oil, it's actually coconut oil, medium chain triglyceride. It's a staple. There's a shake in the fridge, and now it's part of the evening routine. Make the shakes, you know, maybe put on this little Himalayan salt lamp and dim the lights in your room to get ready for your mind and your brain to rest and not just be on the phone. So
how did you acquire all these strategies?
I think it's after having, you know, my own TBI and just going through my own recovery and always being interested in like nutrition and gut health and how our gut is so connected to our brain. I would notice sometimes I'd get a little brain fog, or I'd feel like down in the dumps. I don't have a lot of sugar in my diet usually, but if chocolate chip cookies are around, then it's like game over.
Temptation.
Yeah, temptation. That my mood will be down. I don't really waste energy on like, what am I going to eat? Because I make sure that there's shakes made or salmon, broccoli, you know, a little bit of dark chocolate, avocados, wild blueberries. I just learned about wild blueberries and put those in the shake. So
you're talking about essentially a low carb, low sugar type of nutrition.
Yes. And what also is in there too, like ginger, which is really good for your gut, and turmeric, which helps with inflammation. So
sounds good to me.
And actually it tastes like a chocolate milkshake. I want more people to learn about Angie's shake because it's like I love the way that it tastes. I do a lot of intermittent fasting, so maybe I didn't have that till almost 11 o'clock in the morning because my body really wasn't hungry. I will have like I'll put some hot water with some bone broth, chocolate like protein, and a little bit of collagen protein with some grass-fed butter, and that's higher in fat. And I've just learned that keeps you fuller longer, and it actually helps me really focus as well.
Now, what about other challenges? Anything else you didn't mention, or anything that you would have done differently in your recovery?
I probably would have done EMDR therapy earlier. You know, I sometimes would smell this familiar smell that was from the accident, and I didn't like it. It like triggered something. And so then I would have like flashbacks of the accident. EMDR helped me because we went back to those memories, and it was really difficult. There's times where I was just, not times, probably almost every time when we were in that phase of talking about the accident, where I was just crying. But it was what I've learned. It's almost like eating and never digesting. So some of those memories are just packed in there, from trauma or from whatever we went through in life. And it's allowed me to process them and like move them to like the long-term storage bank where now I don't feel it anymore. I don't, smell those familiar smells from the accident. I don't feel triggered. And when I do feel triggered, it's much more rare now, but I know that I need to practice even better self-care when I start to feel that fatigue or feel overwhelmed or, just mental fatigue. That means you got to go to bed earlier, or, maybe just sleep in an extra hour or take some time in the afternoon to have a little but I've heard somebody refer to it as a little nappuccino. You take a little nappuccino.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that term. Well, that's the challenge, because you've been trained as an athlete. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And the question is, how much can we push ourselves and still stay healthy? That's the ongoing challenge, I think.
Diet and with my habits to just this is a non-negotiable. You're going to work out and you're going to meditate and pray in the morning, because that's going to give you the best ability to have a more joyful day. And
sounds like you calendar that in.
Yeah, it's every morning. It's just God, exercise, meditate, and life is short. And sometimes I need to remind myself and look at some of the journal entries to remind myself how fragile life is. And if you say you want to do all these things or make time for these things, but you're so driven, you need to enjoy your life too. And I think socializing and being around people and connecting with others and having conversations and deep, meaningful conversations is so important. And I thrive. I love that. I love meeting new people. I think that's why I'm in sales. I get to meet
Absolutely. People. That's very consistent with your personality. So any other advice you want to give to brain injury survivors or families or even treaters who are involved with brain injury survivors?
Well, I think for the treaters, or those that treat or advise, whether it's attorneys or doctors, we can't see the injury, but just be patient and keep going deeper with those questions to make sure that you fully understand. Well, tell me more about that. Well, when you say this, what do you mean by that? Because we don't want to make any assumptions, and I think sometimes we all judge a book by its character. Oh, well, they look like this, or this is what they're suffering. I'm sure in just a matter of weeks, they'll be okay. Well, let's really get to the root of it too. It took me a while for in my own healing. You don't just have an injury, a brain injury, and then recover a year later. It's with you for the rest of your life, but it's not your identity. It's just part of your story, but it's not who you are. That's not your identity. Don't try to fix anything. Don't try to fix it. Well, you just need to do this. And sometimes I'm guilty of that with other people. Oh, you just probably need to do this. Maybe you communicate in a way that's well, here's a suggestion. Would you ever consider that? I've learned a lot with my sales business and how to communicate with people and to make sure that they feel understood.
Well, I would think so as a salesman that you first want to understand their needs. What are their priorities? And then try to solve their problems rather than doing a one size fits all. Here's my solution, whether you need it or not.
You need it or not. Here you go. That's why I was well, tell me more about that. And going 3 levels deep. And some people are well, you're so curious. Well, I'd rather be curious and just assume, okay, well, you're just like everybody else. And, or I'm not interested in talking to you, but everybody has their own story and everybody needs to feel loved and everybody is important. And sometimes those survivors maybe don't feel that important. I lost myself. Well, that was your old self and here you are now. But there is so much more to look forward to, and we keep our mind focused on that. That's where.
Well, it's important to find that sense of purpose, the new me, how can I contribute now after my injury? And these are some of the things you're talking about and working on right now.
Well, it is a lifelong goal to be an advocate for those that don't have a voice, just to encourage, inspire, and to bring a light of hope to people.
Your enthusiasm is certainly appreciated. I know that it's going to inspire many people. And I want to thank you for spending the time and effort to speak with me today.
Please like, subscribe, and comment on this video.